exoskeletons, which are now being created to become Hercules. That is the power of the gods. So in other words, one option, instead of fighting off the robots in the next century, is to merge with them, to become superhuman.
Будет ли у нас
Well, we have a choice whether to fight or to merge with them.
I personally think we will have a choice because there's plenty of time. We realize that this is not going to happen anytime soon. Our robots are as smart as bugs right now, and we have many decades before we have to worry about this. If you put a bug in the forest, a bug immediately knows where to find food, how to hide, how to find mates, how to find shelter. A bug can do this. You put our most advanced robots in the forest, and what do? They get lost. They fall over. That's how primitive we are with robots. So we have many decades to plan for the time when robots become self-aware, and beyond that, whether or not we should merge with them. Now, some people think that the idea of merging with robots is repulsive, because it means that we're going to be a brain inside a vat of liquid. No, I don't think so. I think that we will want to preserve our basic shape, we'll want to preserve who we are, but we'll have, in addition to that, exoskeletons giving us super memory and superpowers when we feel like. But we will look pretty much the same as we do now.
Скажите, пожалуйста.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but so if we decide not to merge with robots, I want to ask you the same question as to Dmitry. Will robots develop themselves? And their intellect will develop, and at one point they will say, we no longer need you, human beings.
Well, there is something called the singularity, the point at which robots can create robots of higher intelligence. We are far from the singularity today, but one day it could happen that robots will have babies, and these babies are smarter than the parents, and this process can rise exponentially fast. So rather than fight this, I think we should begin the process of perhaps merging with this technology and enhancing ourselves rather than fighting off what could be inevitable. Now, this is not going to happen, I don't think, in this century. But I think our descendants will have the democratic debate as to how far to merge with our technologies or become extinct.
Спасибо большое. Гуру.
Thank you so much, Sakura. All the hopes are with you. We're talking about technological breakthroughs, which at some point, maybe not today, not tomorrow, will happen. But we are already moving very fast. Previously, technology breakthroughs would happen every generation, but now they happen every day. First of all, can a human brain cope with such a speed of changes? Or people would just go crazy with that?
Good afternoon, everyone. There are two dimensions to this, which I think we're not differentiating here. One is intellect, another is intelligence. Intellect can only function when there is an accumulated memory. Why a child in the village looks a little dumb compared to a city slick boy is simply because he has more memory and information. But if you leave them in real-life situations, the rural boy may come out much smarter, where a certain intelligence is needed, where information is not needed. So essentially, human intellect functions from memory, and everything that we are considering or labeling as technology is essentially memory-based. Our imagination is memory-based. Memory means recorded past, something that we already know. How we can extrapolate into a different format. Essentially the same thing, finding expressions in permutations and combinations, but nothing new happening. Nothing new can happen from that. It looks new because it's a new presentation. It's a new format. Well, in terms of day-to-day life, it's absolutely new, of course. So technologically, whatever we do will lead us to a space where right now human societies have invested heavily. This I must blame it on the European default, because pre-Renaissance, when these societies were hugely restricted by dogmatic religious belief systems, when a few people broke through, that is, they decided to think for themselves, they refused to go by the book or the clergy, and they wanted to think for themselves, and when they thought for themselves, the amount of freedom that it gave them, they thought this is liberation. Because of this, from worshipping God to worshipping human thought became the mode. Since then, we call this scientific development. But essentially, human beings have started worshipping their own thought. What I think is more important than my very existence. Because of this, every capability that we get, we have been using it against ourselves and every other life, simply because our thought is again a manifestation of the memory that we carry. If you allow me a few minutes, we, in the Eastern cultures, in yogic culture, we look at human mind as 16 parts. These 16 parts can be categorized as 4 basic segments. It's called buddhi, I'm using the Indian terminology, I'll come to English. Buddhi, ahankara, manas and chitta. What this means is, buddhi means the intellect. Intellect, if we have to use an analogy, it is a knife. All of you, I'm sure, you would prefer to have a sharp intellect rather than a dull one. Yes? Hello? You must choose, I'm going to bless you. Sharp intellect or a dull one? Sharp. So essentially, it is a cutting instrument. So we have a knife in our hand which gave us a certain access to knowledge because we could dissect whatever we want. This is the nature of human intellect. Whatever it is given to it, it will dissect and look at it. Everything is dissected, including human nature. But by dissection, you will know certain things. If I dissect you, I will know where your heart is located, where your liver, kidney and spleen is located and what's its condition. But I will not know you by any sense. When I say you, I am not talking about your thoughts, your emotions, your ideologies, that also can be known by dissection. We call this psychoanalysis, that's also dissection. But you will not know the nature of this life by dissection. There is no way to know that. So you're using a knife to stitch. You will leave life in tatters. So knife is useful for cutting. So this knife of intellect is a powerful instrument of survival, not an instrument to know something that is beyond your present level of perception. By dissection, you know certain things, but it is not beyond your present dimension of perception. Because this knife is useless without the bank of memory that you already have. What connects you to this bank of memory which we call as manas, which is a silo of memory, is a dimension called ahankara, which literally means